Okay, so fun stuff has been happening the past 2 or 3 months or so. Essentially, I guess you mentioned that maybe I could go over a little bit how we even started GameDev Estonia.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Yeah, how it ended up that we are here now together.
Yeah, so it basically started quite a while ago. Like the very like initial backstory would be like back in 2019 or so, when we were discussing in Discord what kind of organization we could use in Estonia that would have representation for the game dev community in Estonia, both inside and outside of the country. And then, you know, a couple of years passed as it does. Then I released a game meanwhile. And since then, I was a little bit less busy. And then Martin Balu from GameCan, who was like exponentially more busy, somehow found the time to also brainstorm a little bit. And then eventually, like, it was basically that we were independently thinking the same thing, like thinking of doing the same thing, and then ended up talking with each other and we're like, oh, we actually want to do the same thing. So what we wanted to do is establish an organization that would, first of all, measure all of the key metrics and anything that we could measure like Estonian game development performance by in Estonia domestically. And then also find a way to support the ecosystem. And then that was the biggest question mark. But then Martin got approached by a few people from the government, and they were like, hey, if you do a really good job of like making a plan for this stuff, then maybe you can get some money from the government to support all of these, basically all of the different parts of the game development ecosystem in Estonia. So that means game developers directly, game development education, then popularization of game development in Estonia. So also like taking it more to the mainstream. And then we started talking, okay, so neither of us is able to do that full time. And then we started going through some contacts that we had that for people, and we had like a short list of people we were considering for the position. And then meanwhile, in parallel, I met Andres, and we were doing several things, different things at the same time, basically. And I pitched that to Martin, and then a few months went by and we were like, oh, actually, yeah, like that's actually a really good fit. And we decided that we're going to fund the organization with our respective companies, with Placeholder and with GameCan, and so that we could hire somebody to do it full time. And now we have Andres, who's doing it full time, and now we have you as well, to be honest. Yeah. So we have 2 people working on it full time, and maybe even more in the future, who knows. But the whole idea of what we wanted to get out of this organization was that we could have a central point of contact for game developers inside Estonia and anybody who is interested in the topic, so that they could just, you know, Google about game development in Estonia, land on that page, get information about what anybody or everybody is doing, and also create a point of contact from the outside in. So from international studios and organizations to be more focused on Estonia as well, because we have not really had a consistent, coherent, representative organization that's a constant voice, like blaring from the Baltics to the outside, like, hey, we exist. So that's kind of one of the goals as well. And or actually one of the main goals, I guess, so that the Estonian game development, the scene here would be taken more seriously. Yeah, that was the short version. So yeah, and essentially, basically, we created the organization on, what was it, 7th or 9th of November?
November,
early November. I've got to remember all those birthdays, right? And then hired Andres full time, and now he's been doing it for 3 months, basically, right?
Yeah, years.
Yeah, it probably feels like years. And it's actually been going super well. And that's something that I'll let you talk about more in more specifics in the future. But I guess I can also give somewhat of an update on APT as well. So there's several things that we have in the pipeline. We're still handling some ideas about how to get game development education into youth centers, into high schools across Estonia. We are in the process of kind of drafting like a curriculum for it, or it's less of a curriculum and more of like a video series on how to game dev. And the exact format is still like to be decided, but that's something that we are working towards. And then we also have some established curriculums that Jurmo Mehine has put together that we have actually tried out on that people have actually tried out, that we have tried out on site. So we have done some pilot projects in Pärnu, near Pärnu, with a Pärnu Kunstitekool and Sauga Youth Center. And we'll see how that turns out. We're basically still figuring out how we want to do it. Again, APT is a volunteer organization, so time is limited, but so far it's been promising. Yeah, so APT is still looking to do very grassroots stuff. Hopefully we will be able to also organize some more jams. We might not be organizing them directly, but maybe we might if we get some funding for it, because there have been some calls for projects, but none that would really like blow us away. So that's kind of hard, but we'll see. But if there's any sort of, we will probably partner with some other game jams that might be coming later this year, maybe. Don't take my word on it. Things are happening, more news later. Yeah, so we're still doing that.
In Tartu?
Not only, hopefully in Tartu, yes. It will also be, it's one of my personal goals to also get someone to organize meetups in Tartu again as well, because it's been hard. The last one was in December, I think, where we had an RTC workshop. Was it in December or January?
December, I think.
I think it was December, yeah. So maybe we will get some more stuff going there. Yeah. And still, we want to continue doing meetups in Tallinn. So today is mostly organized by Andres, or actually only by Andres. I just got here and I discovered that everything is working and set up and everything is awesome. So I'm just doing some introductory talks, I guess. And I guess I can do a short update on Placeholder Gameworks as well.
Yeah, why not? Yeah.
So fun stuff. We're still working on that Heroes of Might and Magic spin-off game. That's getting further and further and further away from Heroes of Might and Magic, actually, which is great because we might have some interesting original ideas. We have a full-time programmer now. We used to have an additional full-time pixel artist, but she had to quit. So if you are or know anybody who's looking for pixel art, then you can contact Lena on Discord, and let's see, because we need a new pixel artist full-time again for the project, because it has quite a lot of content. And we are also expanding the team by one more member, which is interesting. In the sense of that it's going to be a person that I have worked with together on Heroes of Might and Magic 7. So it's a former colleague, and he's currently working in another company, but he quit last week, and he's starting with us the week after next week, on the 21st, I guess, which I guess would bring our team size to 7 people. And these people are basically almost all full-time, well, it's hard to say full-time for the project because we have a very, very loose schedule. People can just work in their own pace, given that they won't burn themselves out. But they're like, we have a kind of an expectation that if you have a full-time position, then you still work full-time as well. but you get to choose the hours. So that's exciting. We're in full production mode with that game. And hopefully with a colleague with my former colleague who is joining in a couple of weeks, we will have like the dream team together to actually just churn out the game and then release somewhere in 2023, I guess. Because even if we finish it this year, then we probably want to polish it. And then there's a tentative kind of like a prototype or a demo release date in April, because in April there's going to be a games exhibition in Spelkollektivet in Sweden, which was a co-living and co-working house where Lena and I used to live, or Lena still lives there. I don't anymore. I'm living here. And then we want to show something there to our game dev friends, and there's also people coming from outside. So we want to have some kind of a demo ready for them. So once that's ready, I'll be able to show it to you here as well. So April, time for April Fools and jokes.
Is there a link for that game or just web page?
So actually the main thing that Lena is doing right now is she's making assets for the Steam page. So actually, no, not really, not yet. We don't really have one centralized page for it, but we will have a Steam page up sometime during this month. Hopefully.
Is there a name?
Yes, the game is called Broken Alliance. And if any of you have played some Heroes games in the past, then Broken Alliance is the name of a map that started in Heroes of Might and Magic 2. It's one of the coolest maps made in the series. It has been recreated in the later games many, many different times by many different people, sometimes officially, sometimes unofficially. And that also, the name also kind of symbolizes the central core conflict of the game, that you have 4 factions who used to be allied, but they're all ideologically and physically at odds with each other because the planet that they're inhabiting is slowly but steadily exploding. So they have to find a way to either kill each other or learn to live together without killing each other that much. Yeah, that's the thing. So there will be a Steam page for Broken Alliance coming sometime in February, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
The kind people at the Estonian game development Discord asked, is there a link to that server on the GameDev Estonia page?
What server?
Estonian game development server.
That's a good point. Is there a link to the Estonian GameDev Discord on GameDev Estonia's website?
Not at the moment, it will come soon.
That's a good idea.
Yes, there are many, many things coming to the website. I was planning to talk about it later.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. In the sidebar of the web page.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
No questions?
Yeah, does anybody want to ask anything, or
It's pretty quiet. No,
What would be 3 most important things that the Estonian game industry would need right now? 3.
In my opinion?
Yes.
First of all, I think we really need some sort of a support system for game developers amongst themselves, in the sense of, since we are so sparse and so few, then there's a lot of people who have excellent skills, excellent ideas, and even excellent prototypes and design, but there's just so many blanks in so many projects that's just completing any of those projects is like our Herculean task. So for me, it's really important that people would have more, let's say, more opportunities to collaborate, more opportunities to work with each other, exchange knowledge about their specific skill sets, and hopefully still get paid for doing so. So each of these 3 points is basically going to involve funding in some way. The second point, I think, would be more overarching game development education on all levels, like in terms of starting from recreational education for younger people, then having an informal education in high schools, in universities, which kind of exists already, but just not to scale. And then moving on to like specific game development institutions. But that's like way in the future. We'll see. And the third is, I think, would be more support from the general public, or if not support, then acknowledgement of our existence, because it would be super neat if people actually knew that there are a lot of people in Estonia making games. That's not the case right now. So unless that improves, then neither of those first 2 points will really move anywhere either, or at least taken seriously in terms of the Ministry of Economics and Infrastructure.
And
Am I saying it right?
Kulturi Capital realized that making a game is, can be, a creative endeavor.
Maybe at one point, because EAS is still like thinking that game development is a real thing, and we would like them to continue thinking so. Yeah. So we'll see how that goes. But with Kulturi Capital, like we'll have to see how far we can ripple with whatever we're going to be presenting pretty much the government.
Because it not only affects funds, right? It had in my situation
it affects perception from
it
all.
It affects tax inspection.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh,
because for example, before we raise salaries to a good, average to above average local standard.
Yeah.
For the first half a year or something, the tax office actually said to me, like, what the fuck is with your salaries? You're a game development company.
You should be making like millions.
2K plus salaries. And they're like, I'm like, where do you get those? Like, look at Playtech, look at, all the casino, that's games, and you're doing games. Like, not really.
No, that's actually a good point.
And I had an issue with that. We did manage to, get the funding and raise them and blah, blah. But they were coming after, like, are you doing Ümberkupalk? Like, no way, because, we have our own thing with Ümberkupalk, we'll never do that. But still, it's an issue in many regards. And the sooner games are considered art, I think, the more options we'll have.
It's also an interesting factoid that we at Placeholder also experienced is that we were living very, very simple lives, let's say it like that. We were basically minimizing all of our costs. And we paid ourselves like a meager salary. We were just keeping most of the money in the company so that if we could, then we could actually hire people to do some more work for us. So what happened was that eventually at one point, our salary classification went to the dumpster in the EMTA system, and we got like a red warning saying like, oh, your salaries are suspiciously low.
Yes.
Like, but why? And then I realized that since we're in the EMTA code 602.11, which is programmerimine.
Yes, we're also programmerimine right now.
So that kind of sets some expectations, right? So,
but I think they made the code. I think like at the time I registered, there was no code for actual video games.
There's only video game publishing, but not video game development.
Designing, there's no?
There's no. And there's there should be only programmerimine and automängude kirjastamine.
And now they compare those salaries. We have the same thing is that they actually take everything that is related to your EMTAK codes. For us, it's both culture and IT, and they take the general salaries based on position. So they don't care if you're like a game programmer or an app programmer or a web programmer. They have their benchmark. And like we had the same thing. I needed to explain like 21 of our salaries or something. And they were like, okay, but if you look at like these startups here who have raised 500 million, their head of HR has this salary. Yours doesn't. Why is that so?
Yeah, so it's kind of like a catch-22. Yeah, for us it was just like we just raised the salary a little bit, and then we got the classification back into the green zone, and we're like, okay, I guess we don't have to care about it anymore right now. But eventually, this is still going to become a problem. Like, and it still is a problem for, well, basically any studio that wants to register with those codes. So
just basically getting funds in the country is impossible.
Yeah,
right now
a little.
It's impossible. You have to go like to other places.
So now that we have the Pärnu delegation in, Andres, do you want to take
Wait,
over?
wait. Did you answer about Mango de Ö?
I did not.
If there will be a smaller Mango de Ö in the end of April, would you be interested in showing the demo?
Yes.
Yes. Very good.
Absolutely.
Andrei or something?
Andrei, yeah.
Andrei is here online. Yes. Oh
Andrei
my
will
God.
definitely show everything we can.
More
Yeah,
and more.
like-
I hope I have something by April.
More and more
Hopefully
people are
we will have
coming.
many demos there. Like there's a few people here with demos, not looking at anybody specific right now. Well, presentations, I mean. So yeah, if there would be a smaller Mango there, hell yeah.
And look, there is one more.
Have you looked into potential game development education programs in Baltic countries, and would it seek? Yeah. So yes, I have. When I was shit, what was that festival in Riga? What was it? Game Wave. So yeah, I talked to the Latvians and the Lithuanians. That sounds kind of weird to say, but yeah, we talked together and we discussed several different topics, including game development education as well. And we all have pretty much the same issue that all of these you can learn game development in the Baltic countries, but it's not exactly like a fully prepared solution. Would it make sense to collaborate with that? Sure, but you do have to keep in mind that academia and academic funding is like your worst nightmare. So that's going to be a huge impediment. But honestly, if there's enough buzz around it, and if it's justifiable, like the amount of mindfuck that goes into it, then absolutely it would make sense.